My name is Odelia Morgan, and I'm 35 years old. For 28 years, my sister Amanda has labeled me the family screw up. Everyone believed her. My parents, our relatives, even I started to believe it myself. What nobody saw was that I had built a successful career as a software engineer while carrying this burden. Last Thanksgiving, everything changed. The family dynamics I had endured for nearly 3 decades shattered in a single afternoon. Before I tell you how I finally stood up for myself after decades of humiliation, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like button if you've ever felt underestimated by family. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, perfection wasn't just expected in my family, it was the baseline. My father, Richard Morgan, was a renowned cardiothoracic surgeon whose precision in the operating room carried over into every aspect of our home life. My mother, Catherine, commanded respect as a tenured literature professor at a prestigious university. Their accomplishments cast long shadows that my sister Amanda seemed born to fill, while I stumbled through them constantly disoriented. Amanda was everything I wasn't: 3 years older, straight A student from kindergarten, captain of the debate team, and socially magnetic. People gravitated to her natural confidence. When she walked through the halls of our school, teachers would stop to chat with her. They knew she was destined for greatness. Then there was me. I wasn't academically challenged. I just thought differently. Numbers danced in my head in patterns others couldn't see. I'd get lost in creative projects for hours, forgetting homework deadlines. Organization was my nemesis. While Amanda's room looked like a college brochure photograph, mine resembled what Dad called the aftermath of a controlled explosion. The science fair disaster of 1996 cemented my reputation. I was 7 years old and fascinated by chemical reactions. My project involved baking soda volcanoes, 3 of them showing different intensity levels based on varying chemical compositions. I had worked on it for weeks, testing formulations in our garage. On the morning of the fair, Amanda, then 10, watched me preparing to transport my project to the car. "Don't mess this up, Odelia," she said with that confident smirk. "Try not to embarrass the family for once." I was so determined to prove her wrong that I rushed, forgetting to secure the containers of vinegar solution. The inevitable happened during the drive to school. One sharp turn, and all 3 bottles spilled across the back seat of Dad's new BMW. The vinegar soaked through my poster board, dissolving the carefully written data into a soggy mess. The smell lingered in that car for months. "Classic Odelia," Amanda declared at dinner that night, and everyone nodded knowingly. Always the disaster waiting to happen. That phrase stuck. It became shorthand in our family for any mistake. If Mom burnt toast, having an Odelia moment. If Dad misplaced his keys, catching the Odelia bug. What hurt most wasn't the teasing, but how my parents reinforced it through endless comparisons. "Why can't you be organized like your sister? Look how Amanda prepares her assignments weeks in advance. Notice how Amanda checks her work twice." I was 12 when I discovered computer programming through a weekend workshop at the local library. The logic of code made perfect sense to me. It was like finding my native language after years of struggling with foreign tongues. I stayed late coding simple games, the hours disappearing as I built digital worlds from nothing. When I excitedly showed my family the basic inventory program I had created, Amanda glanced at the screen and yawned. "She's just playing on the computer again." My father nodded distractedly. "That's nice, honey. Did you finish your math homework?" They didn't understand that I had found my passion. The computer didn't judge me when I made mistakes. It simply waited for me to find the error and fix it. Each successful program was pure validation. Either it worked or it didn't. No subjective grades, no comparisons to Amanda, just the satisfaction of solving problems my way. At night, I would sometimes cry silently in bed, wondering why I couldn't be the daughter my parents wanted. I practiced saying, "I'm sorry" for things that weren't my fault. I apologize for taking up space. I apologize for not being Amanda. What nobody in my family recognized was that while I struggled with their definition of success, I was developing skills that would eventually define my future. I was learning resilience through failure, something Amanda, with her perfect record, never had to face. "You'll understand when you're older," my mother would say when I complained about the constant comparisons. "We just want what's best for you." But what they wanted for me and what I needed were vastly different things. I needed acceptance for who I was, not constant reminders of who I wasn't. High school should have been my chance to establish my own identity, but Amanda's shadow stretched even there. She had graduated 2 years earlier as valedictorian, her smiling photograph still displayed in the school's trophy case when I walked in as a freshman. "Another Morgan," my English teacher exclaimed on the first day checking her roster. "Amanda's sister. We're expecting great things from you." That expectation weighed heavier than my backpack ever could. Teachers would hand back my B-plus essays with genuine confusion. "Your sister always turned in such polished work. Maybe you should ask for her help." What they didn't see was that I stayed up until 2 a.m. most nights coding, creating applications that actually solved real problems. I built a program that helped my friend Miguel, who had dyslexia, convert text into a format that was easier for him to read. It wasn't perfect, but it made a difference in his life. When Amanda was accepted to Stanford on a partial scholarship, our house transformed into Celebration Central. My parents invited the entire extended family for a dinner party that lasted until midnight. Aunt Clara brought a cake decorated with the Stanford logo. Uncle Thomas gave Amanda his gold fountain pen that had belonged to his father. That same week, I won second place in a statewide coding competition. My project was an algorithm that helped optimize bus routes for efficiency. When I mentioned it during Amanda's celebration dinner, my mother smiled distractedly. "That's nice, dear. Did you clear the table like I asked?" Amanda overheard and added, "Good job, Oops Elia. Try for first place next time." That nickname, Oops Elia, stuck like gum to my identity. Amanda introduced it to our cousins at Thanksgiving. "This is my sister, Oops Elia. She's good at accidents." They laughed, and soon it spread through the extended family. Even my grandfather, who barely remembered my actual name due to early dementia, would brighten when I visited. "Here's our little Oops Aaliyah," he'd say affectionately, not understanding how each use of that name felt like a tiny paper cut. As Amanda thrived at Stanford, I retreated further into my digital sanctuary. I found an online community of young programmers where my username Code Queen earned respect. These strangers valued what my family dismissed. We collaborated on projects, solved coding challenges, and celebrated each other's victories no matter how small. My junior year, a new computer science teacher, Ms. Rivera, recognized something in me that others had missed. After class one day, she handed me a flyer for a summer coding camp at MIT. "You have a natural talent for computational thinking," she said. "This could be a good fit for you." When I showed the flyer to my parents, my father glanced at the cost and shook his head. "That's a lot of money for a hobby, Odelia." "It's not a hobby," I insisted. "It's what I want to do with my life." My mother exchanged a look with my father. "We've already committed to helping Amanda with her summer research program. Maybe next year." There was never enough for both of us. Not enough money, not enough attention, not enough pride to go around. It was as if our family operated on a zero-sum model of love, with Amanda always getting the larger portion. By senior year, when it came time for college applications, I didn't even bother showing my parents the brochures from elite computer science programs. Instead, I applied to a solid technical college with a scholarship program for women in STEM. When I was accepted with a full ride, I told my parents over breakfast. "Well," my father said, buttering his toast, "at least you'll get some kind of degree." Amanda's Stanford graduation ceremony was a family pilgrimage. We flew to California, stayed in an expensive hotel, and took hundreds of photos. At the celebration dinner afterward, relatives kept asking me when I would get serious about my future. "Technical college is serious," I said quietly. My uncle patted my hand. "Of course it is, Oops Aaliyah. We know you're doing your best." Their condescension was wrapped in affection, making it impossible to protest without seeming ungrateful. I swallowed my resentment along with my dessert and promised myself that someday they would see me, really see me, for who I was and what I could accomplish. What I didn't realize then was how many years would pass before that day would come. College was the first time I truly felt I belonged somewhere. At Portland Technical Institute, I wasn't Amanda Morgan's little sister. I was just Odelia, the girl who could debug code faster than anyone else in the program. My computer science professors recognized my talent immediately. Dr. Bennett, who had worked at Microsoft during its early days, pulled me aside after the first major project. "You have a gift for elegant solutions," he said. "Your code isn't just functional, it's beautiful." Those words sustained me through many difficult phone calls home, where my parents' first questions were inevitably about Amanda's progress in medical school. Following the family tradition, my father would say proudly, while my own accomplishments remained background noise. During sophomore year, I met Zoe in an advanced algorithms class. She transferred from MIT because, as she put it, too many bros, not enough coding. And Zoe became the first person who truly understood both my passion for programming and the complicated dynamics of living in someone else's shadow. My brother's the family golden child, she confided during an all-night coding session. 3-time state swimming champion. I was just the nerdy sister with the inhaler. With Zoe's friendship and mentorship from professors who valued my abilities, I flourished. I maintained a 3.9 GPA, led the development of the school's first mobile app, and secured an internship at a growing startup called Nexus Tech the summer before senior year. When I graduated with honors, my family attended the ceremony, but arrived late and left early because Amanda had an important exam the following day. My father took a single photo of me in my cap and gown, then spent the rest of the time answering emails about his patients. At least you finished, my mother said, which I suppose was meant to be encouraging. Nexus Tech offered me a full-time position as a junior developer right after graduation. The salary was modest, but fair for an entry-level position, and the potential for growth was tremendous. When I told my family over Sunday dinner, Amanda was home on break from her second year of medical school. A startup, she questioned, eyebrow raised. Aren't those risky? Most fail within the first year. Nexus Tech has secured second-round funding, I explained. They're stable and growing. Well, Amanda continued, cutting her chicken with surgical precision. At least it's a job. With your track record, I was worried you might end up in fast food. My father chuckled at what he perceived as good-natured teasing. Amanda, be nice. Your sister is doing adequately. Adequately. The word echoed in my head for weeks afterward. Not impressively, not exceptionally, just adequately. At Nexus Tech, however, I was more than adequate. Within 6 months, I had identified and fixed a critical flaw in their main product's architecture that had been causing persistent bugs. My solution improved system performance by 30%. This is brilliant work, my supervisor Mark said during my first performance review. You've got senior developer potential written all over you. I received my first promotion and a substantial bonus. When my parents asked about work during our weekly calls, I kept it vague, tired of having my achievements minimized. During my second year at Nexus Tech, I developed a new approach to user interface accessibility that made our software usable for people with visual impairments. What began as a side project during our company's Innovation Week turned into a feature that distinguished our products from competitors. While I was building my career brick by brick, Amanda continued on her predetermined path through medical school. At family gatherings, her progress was discussed in reverent tones. My grandmother kept a framed photo of Amanda in her white coat on her mantel. When I visited, she would ask, "Now what is it that you do again, dear?" "Something with computers." During one Christmas dinner after my grandmother had asked this question for the third time, Amanda jumped in before I could answer. "She has a little computer job," Amanda explained, her voice dripping with condescension. "It's cute. She plays with websites or something." "I'm a software developer," I corrected firmly. "I design programs that solve real-world problems." Like I said, Amanda smirked, cute. Later that evening, as we helped clean up, Amanda found me alone in the kitchen. "Don't take it personally, oopsie, Leah. Not everyone can be exceptional. The world needs average people, too." I gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. "I'm not average at what I do." "Sure," she patted my shoulder. "You keep telling yourself that." The irony was that while my family continued to see me through the lens of childhood mistakes, I was building a reputation in the tech industry as an innovative problem solver. My accessibility framework was gaining attention, and I was invited to speak at a regional tech conference. I didn't tell my family about the conference. I stopped sharing my professional milestones with them altogether. Instead, I channeled my energy into proving myself in an environment that valued results over family history. The wounds from years of dismissal didn't heal, but I built a life around them. I created a chosen family of friends and colleagues who saw me clearly. For the first time, I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the problem after all. By the time I turned 30, I had risen to senior developer at Waveform Technologies, one of Seattle's fastest growing tech companies. My work on accessibility software had evolved into a comprehensive framework that was changing how people with disabilities interacted with digital interfaces. I purchased a modern condo in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. Not enormous, but mine with floor-to-ceiling windows and a dedicated office space for late-night coding sessions. When my parents visited for the first time, my mother circled the open-concept living area with a tight smile. "It's cute," she said, using the same word that had been applied to all my achievements. My father nodded. "Practical for a single person." 3 weeks later, they flew to Boston to help Amanda and her husband John close on a 5-bedroom colonial. My mother called me from the new house, her voice echoing with excitement. "You wouldn't believe the gourmet kitchen, Odelia, and the yard. Perfect for when they have children." Always the unspoken comparison. Always the suggestion that my life was somehow incomplete, in contrast to Amanda's traditional path. Amanda's wedding the previous year had been another exercise in familial hierarchy. Despite contributing significantly to the costs, I was relegated to background roles, while Amanda's medical school friends took center stage in the wedding party. During her reception toast, Amanda included what she considered a funny anecdote about my childhood. "My sister and I are so different," she told the crowded reception hall. "When we were kids, I organized my books alphabetically. Meanwhile, Odelia once tried to alphabetize our mother's spice rack and somehow managed to create a domino effect that ended with saffron in the dog's water bowl." The guests laughed as I sat rigidly at the family table, my champagne untouched. What Amanda didn't mention was that I was 8 years old when that happened, or that I had been trying to help prepare for her birthday party. A month after my parents' visit to my cute condo, Waveform was acquired by a major tech corporation for an amount that transformed my stock options into financial independence. Overnight, I went from comfortable to wealthy. I decided to use this opportunity to pursue a dream I'd harbored for years, founding my own company focused on educational software. Learning Logic was born with a mission to create adaptive learning tools that could adjust to different cognitive styles. I thought of Miguel from high school and all the other students who didn't fit the standard educational mold. My first product was designed to help children with learning differences master math concepts through visual and interactive methods. When I told my family about my new venture during Thanksgiving dinner, my father frowned. "Leaving a stable position to start what did you call it? An educational technology company," I repeated. "Right. Seems risky, especially for someone with your history." My history. As if my entire professional career wasn't evidence enough that I had outgrown childhood mishaps. Amanda, now in her dermatology residency, shook her head. "Hobby businesses are fine if you have the time, I suppose." "It's not a hobby," I said through gritted teeth. "I've secured seed funding and have 3 developers already on board." "Well," Amanda said, spooning cranberry sauce onto her plate, "good luck with that. Let us know when your luck runs out and you need a real job again." That was Amanda's consistent narrative about my success, that it was all luck rather than skill, all happenstance rather than hard work. In her version of reality, I was still the family screw-up who occasionally stumbled into good fortune. A few months after launching Learning Logic, I met Jordan at a tech mixer in downtown Seattle. As the head of product design at a virtual reality company, Jordan understood the tech world and was immediately interested in my vision for educational software. Our relationship progressed quickly from professional respect to friendship to romance. Jordan was the first person I dated who didn't need my family dynamics explained. After witnessing one Zoom call with my parents, the picture was painfully clear. "They really don't see you, do they?" Jordan asked afterward. "They see a version of me that stopped existing 20 years ago," I replied. Jordan encouraged me to establish stronger boundaries with my family, suggesting that their treatment was edging into emotional abuse territory. But decades of conditioning made it difficult for me to assert myself. Every time I considered limiting contact, guilt would flood in. They were my family. Wasn't I supposed to endure their quirks and forgive their shortcomings? What I hadn't fully accepted yet was that forgiveness doesn't require continued exposure to harm. That lesson was still waiting for me just around the corner. My parents' 40th anniversary coincided with Learning Logic's second year of operation. The celebration was planned at our family lake house in Oregon, where generations of Morgans had spent summers swimming, boating, and creating memories both sweet and difficult. Jordan and I flew in from Seattle the day before the main event. The familiar scent of pine and lake water hit me as we drove up the gravel driveway. The two-story cabin looked smaller than I remembered its cedar siding weathered by decades of Pacific Northwest rain. Inside, my mother was orchestrating chaos into order, directing my father and uncles in hanging decorations, while simultaneously instructing cousins on proper table setting. She paused briefly to offer me a distracted hug before assigning us to inflate balloons. By evening, most of the extended family had arrived. Aunt Clara with her new husband, Uncle Thomas and his 3 teenage children, cousins from both sides with their growing families, and of course Amanda. She arrived fashionably late with her husband John and their 4-year-old son Tyler. Her entrance created the usual stir, hugs, exclamations over her designer dress, compliments about how she hadn't aged a day since medical school. "Aunt Odelia!" Tyler broke free from his mother's grip and ran toward me with the unrestrained enthusiasm only preschoolers possess. I scooped him up, genuinely delighted by his affection. "Hey, buddy, you've grown a foot since Christmas." "Only 3 inches, he corrected seriously. "Mommy measured on the wall." Amanda approached her smile, not quite reaching her eyes. "Tyler, be careful. Aunt Odelia isn't used to children." The implication was clear. My childless state was another deficiency in Amanda's accounting of my life. The evening progressed pleasantly enough on the surface. We shared a massive dinner prepared by my mother and aunts. Stories flowed along with the wine, mostly centered on family lore, that painted my parents' 40 years together as a storybook romance, rather than the complex relationship it truly was. After dinner, guests broke into smaller conversational groups. I was discussing Seattle's tech scene with my cousin Patrick when Amanda sidled up, glass in hand. "Still doing that app thing?" she asked. "Educational software," I corrected. "Yes, we're growing faster than projected." She nodded absently. "John and I are thinking of opening a second dermatology clinic. The waiting list for his cosmetic procedures is 6 months long." The pattern was so familiar. Any mention of my work immediately redirected to Amanda's greater accomplishments. Later, while helping with dessert in the kitchen, I overheard Amanda speaking to Tyler in the adjacent dining room. He had brought his tablet, struggling with a math game. "I don't understand it, Mommy," he whined. "Just try harder." Amanda sighed. "And if you can't figure it out, that's okay. We don't want you to be a screw-up like Aunt Odelia, but not everyone needs to be good at math." The serving spoon I was holding clattered to the floor. The casual cruelty of passing this toxic narrative to the next generation hit me like a physical blow. Tyler was just a child, already being taught to see me through Amanda's distorted lens. I retreated to the dock to compose myself, watching moonlight ripple across the lake surface. Jordan found me there, silently offering a hand on my shoulder. "I heard," was all Jordan said. 28 years, I whispered. "When does it end?" Before Jordan could answer, my phone rang. It was Mahira, my lead developer, calling with an urgent issue. A school district in Texas using our software was experiencing system-wide errors just before standardized testing. I spent the next hour on the dock with my laptop, working with my team to identify and fix the bug. It was complex, an unforeseen interaction between our system and the school's outdated network infrastructure. By midnight, I had written a patch that resolved the issue. As I closed my laptop, I realized a small audience had gathered on the dock. My father, 2 uncles, and Amanda stood watching. "Crisis averted," I announced, attempting a smile. "That was impressive," my Uncle Thomas said. "You figured that out fast." My father nodded, a rare look of consideration on his face. "I didn't realize your work was so technical." For a moment, I felt a glimmer of what I'd always wanted: recognition of my competence, acknowledgement of my skills. Then Amanda spoke. "Even a broken clock is right twice a day." The glimmer extinguished. In one dismissive sentence, she had negated both my years of expertise and the moment of potential connection with my father. The next morning, the anniversary celebration continued with a family brunch. I was helping set up when disaster struck in the form of Amanda backing into a server carrying a tray of mimosas. Orange juice and champagne splashed across Aunt Clara's silk blouse. "I'm so sorry," the young server exclaimed. Amanda turned, assessing the situation with a clinical eye. Odelia pushed past me, she declared, always in a rush, never looking where she's going. I froze, coffee carafe in hand, 6 feet away from the incident I had nothing to do with. I was nowhere near you, I said quietly. Amanda rolled her eyes toward our gathering relatives. Classic Odelia, never taking responsibility. 28 years of accumulated resentment crystallized in that moment. The unfairness, the constant belittling, the deliberate undermining, all of it condensed into a white-hot point of clarity. Stop it, I said, my voice stronger than I'd expected. The conversation around us stuttered to silence. Excuse me. Amanda's eyebrows rose to her hairline. I said, stop it. Stop blaming me for your mistakes. Stop painting me as incompetent. Stop poisoning this family against me with your constant narrative that I'm some perpetual screw-up. Amanda laughed nervously, glancing around for support. Someone's being a little dramatic. No, I continued, feeling decades of suppressed words finally breaking free. Dramatic would be listing every time you've deliberately humiliated me, every accomplishment of mine. You've dismissed every time you've made sure our family sees me as nothing but a series of childhood mistakes. My mother stepped forward. Odelia, this isn't the time or place. When is the time, Mom? When has there ever been space in this family for my feelings? For 28 years, I've watched you all accept Amanda's version of who I am. None of you bothered to see me. I turned back to Amanda. You called me Oops Aaliyah in front of my boss at your wedding. You told Tyler not to be a screw-up like Aunt Odelia. You've consistently treated my career as a joke despite knowing nothing about it. Amanda's face flushed. You're overreacting. It's just family teasing. It's not teasing when it's one-sided. It's bullying. And I'm done accepting it. The silence that followed was deafening. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Relatives studied their mimosa glasses with sudden interest. I set down the coffee carafe with deliberate care. I love you all, but I won't be your punching bag anymore. I walked out, tears blurring my vision, Jordan following close behind. We drove away from the lake house with no destination in mind, just the need for distance. I'm proud of you, Jordan said as we headed back toward Portland. The words landed like a revelation. When was the last time anyone in my family had expressed pride in me? Had they ever? I made a decision in that car. I would take a step back from family contact. Not permanently, but long enough to heal, to strengthen my sense of self outside their distorted mirror. That afternoon marked the end of one chapter of my life and the beginning of another, one where I would no longer shrink myself to accommodate others' limited perception of me. The 6 months following my parents' anniversary became a period of transformation. I limited contact with my family to brief, polite text messages on holidays. My mother called weekly at first, her voicemails carefully avoiding any mention of the confrontation, while suggesting I was overreacting. Eventually, the calls tapered to monthly check-ins that I responded to with brief updates, maintaining firm boundaries. Without the emotional drain of family dynamics, I channeled my energy into learning logic. We expanded our team to 15 developers and education specialists. Our adaptive math program gained traction in school districts across the Pacific Northwest, then nationwide. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A middle school in Oakland implemented our software in classes with high percentages of students with learning differences. Their standardized test scores in mathematics improved by 37% in a single semester. The principal contacted me directly, calling our program revolutionary for students who had been left behind. That success story caught the attention of Education Innovator magazine, which featured learning logic in their cover story, The Future of Inclusive Learning. My photograph, me sitting cross-legged on the floor with students' tablet in hand, appeared on newsstands nationwide. The article led to interest from major investors, including a foundation focused on educational equity. Their substantial investment allowed us to develop versions of our software for reading comprehension and science education. By summer learning, Logic had become one of the fastest-growing edtech companies in the country. I was invited to speak at conferences, consult with school districts, and even testify before a state education committee on technology's role in addressing learning disparities. Jordan moved in with me, transforming my Seattle condo into a true home filled with plants, art, and the warmth my childhood house had often lacked. We adopted a rescue dog named Algorithm Alley for short, whose enthusiasm for life was contagious. In August, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in months, Amanda. I stared at it, heart rate accelerating before answering. Odelia. Her voice sounded different, strained, perhaps even humbled. I need your help. Of all the scenarios I'd imagined for our eventual reconnection, Amanda asking for my help hadn't made the list. What's going on? I asked cautiously. It's Tyler, she said, her professional composure cracking. He's struggling in school. They're saying he has dyslexia and possibly ADHD. His teacher mentioned educational software that might help, and when I researched it, she paused. It's yours. Learning Logic. The irony wasn't lost on me. The sister who had dismissed my work as a hobby business now needed the very technology she had belittled. My first instinct was to refuse to let her experience the consequences of years of disrespect. But then I thought of Tyler, innocent, bright-eyed Tyler, who deserved every possible advantage regardless of his mother's behavior. I can help Tyler, I said finally. But I want to be clear. This isn't about you or me or our history. This is about him. Amanda agreed immediately, the relief in her voice palpable. We arranged for them to visit my office the following week. I prepared myself emotionally unsure how it would feel to see Amanda in my professional space, where I was respected, valued, even admired. When they arrived, Tyler bounded ahead of his mother, eyes wide at the colorful open office filled with monitors and creativity boards. Amanda followed more hesitantly, designer handbag clutched like a shield. "This is where you work, Aunt Odelia?" Tyler asked, spinning to take it all in. "It is." I smiled, crouching to his level. "Want to see something cool?" I showed him our development lab where engineers were testing new features with actual students. Tyler was mesmerized by the interactive displays and gamified learning modules. Amanda stood back watching silently. I caught her expression as Tyler enthusiastically engaged with one of our reading programs. Surprise mixed with something that looked almost like respect. "He's never focused this long on anything academic," she said quietly. I spent an hour working directly with Tyler, adjusting settings in our software to accommodate his specific learning needs. His excitement when he successfully completed reading exercises that had previously frustrated him was reward enough for putting aside my resentment. As they prepared to leave, Amanda lingered after Tyler ran ahead to the elevator. "Your company," she said, gesturing around. "It's impressive." "Thank you," I replied simply, neither rejecting nor overvaluing the long overdue acknowledgement. "I didn't understand what you actually do," she continued. "I thought it was just, I don't know, making websites or something." "You never asked," I pointed out. She nodded, accepting the truth of that statement. "Can we try again?" For Tyler's sake. It wasn't an apology, not really, but it was a start. I agreed to help monitor Tyler's progress with the software, which meant regular check-ins with Amanda. Over the next few months, Tyler's academic performance improved dramatically. His confidence grew as he mastered concepts that had previously defeated him. Amanda sent me his progress reports, each one showing steady improvement. What she didn't know was that I had been selected to deliver the keynote address at the National Educational Technology Conference in Chicago, the most prestigious gathering in our industry. When the invitation arrived to bring family members to the awards dinner following my speech, I hesitated before extending it to my parents and Amanda's family. To my surprise, they all accepted. The conference ballroom was packed with over 1,000 educators, developers, and policymakers. As I took the stage, I spotted my family in the third row, my parents sitting stiffly in unfamiliar territory, Amanda beside them, with Tyler bouncing excitedly on her lap. For 40 minutes, I spoke about the future of adaptive learning technology, the importance of recognizing diverse cognitive styles, and Learning Logic's mission to ensure no student was left behind. The audience responded with enthusiastic applause and thoughtful questions. Afterward, at the awards dinner, I watched Amanda's expression as industry leaders approached our table to praise my work discussing the impact of my innovations and the brilliance of Learning Logic's core algorithm. Your sister is revolutionizing how we approach learning differences, the superintendent of Seattle Public Schools told my parents. We're seeing children succeed who have struggled for years. Her adaptive framework is being studied at MIT, another educator added. With each commendation, Amanda's perception visibly shifted. I recognized the exact moment when it fully dawned on her. The sister she had dismissed for decades was in fact a respected expert whose work was changing lives. As we left the event, Tyler skipped ahead with my parents, while Amanda fell into step beside me. I need to talk to you, she said. Not here, not now, but soon. I nodded, sensing that after 28 years of dismissal, Amanda might finally be ready to see me clearly. A week after the conference, Amanda suggested meeting at a quiet cafe halfway between Seattle and her suburban home. I arrived first, selecting a corner table that offered privacy without isolation. When she walked in, I was struck by how uncertain she looked, a foreign expression on the face of someone who had always projected absolute confidence. She ordered a latte, fidgeting with the cardboard sleeve. "I've been thinking about what to say to you for days," she began. "I'm sorry for how I've treated you. You didn't deserve it." The apology I had waited decades to hear landed with less impact than I'd imagined. Perhaps because it felt incomplete, a band-aid over a wound that required stitches. "Why," I asked, "why spend 28 years making me feel inferior?" "What did I ever do to you?" Amanda's composure cracked. "It wasn't about what you did, it was about me, about how I felt threatened by you." Threatened? I couldn't mask my disbelief. "You were the golden child. Everyone adored you. Everyone expected perfection from me," she countered. "One mistake and the whole image would crumble. But you could make mistakes and keep going. You didn't seem to care what anyone thought." "I cared," I said quietly. "I cared so much it physically hurt. I just got used to disappointing people." Amanda stared into her coffee. "I was jealous of your resilience, your creativity, the way you saw solutions no one else could see. It was easier to keep you in the screw-up box than admit you had gifts I didn't." Her admission should have been satisfying, but instead it made me sad. Sad for both of us, trapped in roles that had limited us in different ways. "That doesn't excuse 28 years of mockery," I said firmly. "No, it doesn't," she agreed. "I've been a terrible sister, and seeing you at that conference, hearing how you've helped all those children, including my son," her voice wavered. "I realized what I've done, how wrong I've been." I wanted to forgive her immediately to bridge the gap between us with a simple, "It's okay." But it wasn't okay. Years of emotional damage couldn't be undone with a single conversation. "I need time," I told her. "And if we're going to have any relationship moving forward, things need to change fundamentally, not just with you, with our entire family dynamic." Amanda nodded. "I understand, and I'm willing to do that work." 3 weeks later, our parents hosted a family dinner. It was smaller than usual, just my parents, Amanda's family, Jordan, and me. The tension was palpable as we gathered around the dining table that had witnessed countless instances of my humiliation. Halfway through the meal, Amanda cleared her throat. "I have something to say." All eyes turned to her. "For most of our lives, I've perpetuated a narrative about Odelia that was unfair and untrue. I labeled her the family screw-up and encouraged all of you to see her that way too." My mother's fork clattered against her plate. "Amanda, that's a bit dramatic. It was just family teasing." "No, Mom," Amanda said firmly. "It was systematic undermining, and you and Dad allowed it, encouraged it even." My father shifted uncomfortably. "We never meant to hurt anyone." "Intent doesn't erase impact," I said quietly. "Every time you laughed at Amanda's jokes about me, every time you minimized my achievements while celebrating hers, you reinforced that I was somehow less valuable." "That's not true," my mother protested. "We love you both equally." "Love isn't about equality," Jordan interjected gently. "It's about seeing each person for who they are and celebrating their unique strengths. Odelia has been invisible in this family for too long." A heavy silence fell over the table. My father, never comfortable with emotional discussions, stared at his plate. My mother looked genuinely perplexed, as if we were speaking a language she couldn't quite grasp. I'm trying to make amends, Amanda continued. But it can't just be me. We all need to recognize the pattern and commit to changing it. The conversation that followed was difficult, awkward, and long overdue. My parents struggled to acknowledge their role in the dynamic alternating between denial and deflection, before slowly accepting that perhaps they hadn't been as fair as they believed. We never realized how it affected you, my father finally admitted. We thought you were resilient. I had to be, I replied. I didn't have a choice. By evening's end, no miraculous transformation had occurred. There were no tearful group hugs or profound epiphanies. Instead, there was a tentative agreement to try differently moving forward, to listen more carefully to check assumptions, to create space for me to exist as my actual self, rather than the caricature they had constructed. The process of rebuilding our family relationships was slow and often uncomfortable. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns emerged and had to be consciously redirected. There were difficult conversations and occasional hurt feelings on all sides. I maintained firm boundaries, refusing to attend gatherings where I felt diminished, and speaking up immediately when problematic dynamics surfaced. Sometimes this meant leaving early or declining invitations altogether. Therapy helped, both individual sessions that allowed me to process decades of familial wounds, and eventually family therapy, where a neutral third party could identify unhealthy patterns we might miss. A year after our confrontation at the lake house, we gathered again for Thanksgiving. The difference was subtle but significant. When I mentioned learning Logic's expansion into international markets, my parents asked thoughtful questions. When Amanda began a sentence with "Remember when Odelia," I tensed, but she continued, "Develop that reading program that helped Tyler so much." The most meaningful change came in my relationship with Tyler and Amanda's second child, a daughter named Eliza. I became their trusted aunt, the one they called with computer questions and coding curiosities. Amanda encouraged this connection, perhaps recognizing the importance of having different role models. "Tyler wants to be a software developer like you," she told me during a family barbecue. "He says Aunt Odelia makes computers do magic." The healing wasn't perfect or complete. Some wounds were too deep, some patterns too ingrained to fully eradicate. My parents still occasionally slipped into old habits of comparison. Amanda still had moments of competitive tension. But the difference was that now these instances were recognized for what they were. They were named, addressed, and corrected, rather than accepted as normal family dynamics. The greatest healing came not from family validation, but from my own journey toward self-acceptance. Through therapy, supportive friendships, professional success, and Jordan's unwavering belief in me, I learned to see myself clearly, not as the family screw-up, but as a woman of value, capability, and worth. I realized that I had been seeking external validation from the very people least equipped to provide it. The freedom I found in releasing that need was profound. Today, at 35, I lead a company that helps children who, like me, think differently. I have a partner who sees and celebrates my authentic self. I have created boundaries that protect my well-being while allowing for family relationships that, while imperfect, are healthier than before. I no longer apologize for taking up space. I no longer shrink to make others comfortable. I no longer accept narratives about myself that don't align with reality. The truth I've learned is this: families can change when truth is spoken. Not easily, not completely, but meaningfully enough to allow for new possibilities. The scars remain, but they no longer define the relationship. Have you ever been labeled unfairly by those who should have been your greatest supporters? How did you find your way to self-validation? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Remember, sometimes the greatest act of self-love is refusing to accept others' limiting perceptions of who you are. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you stand in your truth, whatever that may be.